The error function in Plait raises an exception, but other expressions might raise an exception, like a divide by 0 exception when we try to divide 1 by 0. Besides raising those exceptions, Plait provides a try form. Try lets us try an expression, and if it raises an exception, then we evaluate some alternative exception handling expression instead. So for example, if we try 1 divided by 0, it'll fail, and try will then move on to the handler here and return plus infinity dot 0. On the other hand, if the expression after try succeeds, like adding 1 to 0 is just fine, then it produces a 1 and try returns that result without using the exception handler at all. The expression that fails doesn't have to be immediately in the body of a try. Here I have try list 1, which is all fine, but then there's a nest expression that raises an exception. So of course what happens is control jumps out of this nested expression to the try, which uses the exception handler and returns empty, not list empty 3, of course. The try itself can be nested in other expressions. So here we have that same expression before, where there's an exception inside of the list form that it causes the whole try form to produce empty, and then that can be nested in a cons10 to produce con10 empty. Finally, try expressions themselves can be nested. For example, if we have try immediately in a try, then when the expression 1 divided by 0 raises an exception here, it proceeds to the nearest enclosing try and uses its exception handler. So that's why the result in this case is empty and not list of 10. If, on the other hand, the exception handler itself raises an error, so here we've got a divide by 0 that triggers this exception handler expression, but it raises an exception. In that case, we chain to the enclosing try, which is here, and so we get list 10 out at this point. So that's the try form that we want to add to curly. We've got all of the things that we had before, plus this new try form. And the syntax is try, some expression, a lambda with 0 arguments, and the handler expression. Now we don't actually have 0 argument functions in curly right now, but try can just syntactically use this lambda to make it look more like Plait. So in our revised curly, we will want try 0 with an exception handler that produces 1 to just return 0, because 0 succeeds without raising an exception. But try of 0 applied to 0, that's an exception in curly. We want to be able to catch that and return 1 instead of an error v or raising an exception. And we want it to work right nested. So here I have a try 2 that does not fail. So we have 2 plus 3 to get 5. And here I have a try of 2 applied to 2, which does fail. So we should produce 1 as the result of the try form. But that result should then get added to 3 so that we get a number 4 out. Finally, we should support nested tries, just like Plait. So here, 0 applied to 0 triggers an exception, which jumps to the nearest enclosing exception handler to produce 1, and so this outer try succeeds with 1. Whereas if the exception handler raises an exception, then we want to trigger the second exception handler, this outer handler, to return 2.